Just when I thought I had the perfect script written out, my mom just gave me a brand new idea. Today we're going to talk about photos and art, but maybe they're not as prominent as we thought. I'll explain.
Blame the mom. Blame the mom.
All right, then I will. Welcome back, guys. My name is Rob. This is my mom, Karen, and you are watching Books, Banter and Beyond. And so I sat down and wrote this episode, and I was like, oh, I got a great idea. And then, of course, we started talking, and I was just like, wait a minute, this may just be totally backwards than what I wrote. So the original idea we had for today was how use of photos and art enhance a story. And as we got to talking and thinking about it, we realized as time has gone on, there's actually less and less of it as there used to be. So we're going to kind of discuss maybe why that evolution happened in recent narrative versus things from back in the 80s and the 90s. So generally speaking, when I was explaining my position here to you, I used the example of going to an art museum, a photography exhibit. You go there to see the work. You're going there to look at the artist's renditions, whether it's a painting, a drawing, a photo, what have you. And that's what you're focused on. There's nothing else to additional other than probably a name of whatever it's called. But you're going there to look at the piece of art, right?
Right.
And then it got me thinking, well, what did I have when I was growing up younger, when you were growing up as well? And back in the day, for things like kids' books, picture books, Dr. Seuss, for instance,
Right.
a lot of it was visual with colors. It might not, it could have been a drawing. It might have just been splashes of paint on the page.
Right.
But there's a lot of color to it, and I think the purpose is as your brain is working, the visuals help the child's brain kind of
Right. And engage in the book. Right.
engaging exactly. However, as you go on and as you read books more towards your age range, you soon realize that most of it is just the words. Especially, we'll talk about audiobooks as well. But you also brought up a good point about how if there is anything in there, it's probably a diagram. There might be a photo, and it might just be of the individual, whoever it is. But there's not a lot of actual visual work in a book. And I'm wondering because as we were talking, I was still trying to figure out why that is, and I don't know if I know exactly. I think maybe more so nowadays, people prefer just the information and to kind of create their own image. Maybe do you think
Yeah,
there's
I
something?
think so. I think so. I mean, as we said, in books that are nonfiction, there might be a diagram, or if it's a spy or a true life, true crime, something, there might be photographs from the thing that
Right,
happened, right?
exactly.
But other than that, I actually think by putting picture, I think the reason why there are pictures in kids' books is that kids are still forming their brains and they're still, still learning and deciding what things are. And so when they see pictures, it helps them develop, oh, that's what the color red looks like on a red balloon kind of thing.
Right.
As we get older, I think we all would like to be able to create the picture in our head, which is why, and we didn't talk about this before the show, Rob, which is why a lot of people say the book is so much better than the movie,
That is
right?
very true.
Or they'll say that's not how I pictured it when I was reading the book. They didn't stay true to the story, which is such an interesting concept. They didn't try to stay true to the story, which because they added pictures, literally, right?
Right. And we were talking about audiobooks because you and I both use them. A lot of people use them now. And I just actually got a thought in my head because I was reading a book and the narrator made a point of saying, at this point, there is a diagram in the hardcover. So I'm going to do my best to explain
Explain it.
it.
Right.
And it kind of jolted you for a second because you're like, that's weird. But then you realize it is part of the book.
Right.
So it's important for obviously, even in audio form, to at least get a general idea of what the photo or the diagram was
Right.
to explain what's coming next. And I just came to mind when we were talking about that. And did it help per se? I don't think so personally, because it didn't really add any more. But I think the idea of even in an audiobook, somebody going, hey, at this point, there is a photo of this. Let me give you the description.
Right. I
It's
think,
an
yeah, they're also in audiobooks, and as I think about it, in the introduction where you're listening to it, whether it's Audible or Spot, wherever it is, they can put links in there. So I know that some authors have said click the link to bring you to some visuals, basically to some diagrams.
okay,
They don't
okay.
even have to explain it, especially in a nonfiction book. Especially so when I was reading a lot of nonfiction and a lot of self help and personal development, there were a crap load of diagrams. I mean, that's all they want to do is give you diagrams, and they know they can't describe the diagram, so they'll say the book you can see all of these and more. Click the link, and it takes them to their website, and now you can actually see pictures. So they try to get around it, I think, which is they
Well,
have.
I think it leads to a good question that we had was, and again, the questions I had now, totally obligatory or not necessary. So the question I actually think is better now is, do we do we want photos again? Do we want pictures? Or are we okay with just the books as they are? And I think, if we go off what we've just been talking about, I think we're okay without them. Not to say that art is not necessary, because I think art is very necessary.
Right.
But I think in terms of reading or in terms of listening, I guess it's not as important as it might have been, which is kind of a funny idea
Isn't that
now.
weird? But Rob, think about coffee table books.
Oh, that's
So,
okay.
and coffee table books, literally, they're filled with pictures. I mean, that's the whole idea behind coffee table
So
books,
yeah, so for those who haven't
right?
seen them, are there all there are basically either
Pictures and
photos
a
or
description
art.
and a small little description. So it's like the opposite, and it sits on your table. And if you didn't have those pictures, that book would mean absolutely nothing. So maybe it's
Exactly.
the type of book, maybe.
Well, so one that we have here, it's I think the Art of Star Wars, and it's a huge book. It's a coffee table book, and with on each page you have the visual, and then there's a blurb, and I think the blurb explains either where it was in the movie, where it was in the book, whatever
Mhm.
it was. And you're right. It's probably the only thing I have that would be a visual media book that's not just the words. And again, you're right. If they just gave me the blurb on a blank page, probably wouldn't be worth my time to get,
Right,
because I could easily look that up online for free and
right.
find that blurb. So yeah, you're right.
So, and I'm trying to think of other examples. I think of recipe books, cookbooks. There are cookbooks that not don't just have the recipes in it, but they have a picture of what that thing is going to look like when you cook it. That could do one thing or the other. It could either say, "Oh, that's going to be great. It's going to look like this," or make you feel really terrible because yours didn't turn out at all. It doesn't look anything like that.
And then you just wonder what happened.
Exactly. And then the question is, do you need pictures in your cookbook?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's another no, because I think generally, if you're cooking chicken, you know what it looks like. I don't necessarily need a picture of chicken, because I already know what it should end up looking like, I guess. So it is kind of a
Yeah.
weird, and what I've also noticed in a lot of new books is it used to have on the back the author's photo and stuff, but then even that is limited now. Not a lot of people put their photo, and I think it's kind of one of those, well, you've already seen me 500 times. I
Right.
don't think you need to see me again, because you already know who I am. Plus, if you Google me, my photo's all over the internet.
Right,
So
and actually what you're saying is important too. I mean, everything you say is important, but specifically though, books, Audible books, and things like that, audiobooks, there is one image, and that is the cover. Right? The
okay,
cover
okay.
image that it helps you pick that book out. So I'm actually
It
going to
really
say
does.
I'm going to say the opposite right now of what I said. The pictures don't mean anything to me, but when I'm picking out a book, especially an audiobook, the only thing I can go by is that book cover and the little blurb about the book to let me know, oh, that's something I might want to read or not read. But that's
Right.
the only picture, right? But they do put a picture, right? I mean, on all audiobooks, even at the library, Libby, they have a picture of the
They
book.
do. The only ones that don't are the ones that are like school related. There's something called Great Courses, and it's basically just books based off of school
Mm.
curriculum. And that's just basically all it is the title of the book, and it's a blank page. But for regular books, yes, there's there's at least one small picture,
Right.
if not the whole thing covered, of what I guess, the idea of the book is.
So the question for you, Rob, is since we just said pictures are probably not all that important at this point, though, but if there were a picture, black or white, black and white, or color, what would be more effective for you?
Huh. I would say, and okay, so I can only answer this based on like art that I've seen. So this is more personal preference.
Hmm.
Um, I would probably go with the black and white. I feel like it gives more of a retro classic feel.
Hmm.
And I think it also doesn't divert the eyes. So, like, if you are opening a book and there happens to be a photo, let's say it's a history book and it's a photo of, the Wild West or a medieval castle, if it was in color, it would be cool. But I think because the purpose of reading is to focus on the words, I think a color image would divert me at least too much away from the visuals. So I would go with classic black and white just because I think it's pretty and I think it evens out the playing field of the book.
And it allows you, the reader, to decide what the color should be or what it really right.
Yeah,
It leaves it in the reader's hand. It gives you the start. Okay, this is the picture of the building or the plane or the person or whatever.
right.
But now that you're reading it, you're going to fill in all the colors, kind of, right?
I like that. Yeah, that is
I-
really cool.
So you're listening, guys. Let us know what is your thing. I mean, do you like pictures in your book? Do you want it to be black and white? Do you actually have pictures in your book? Do you read books or do you listen to books? We want to know what you're doing. And go check out nextchapterbookstore.shop because those books are there, gently used. That means somebody has held them. Their stories are connected now to the story you're reading. I love that. Go check it out. Let us know what your favorites are. Rob, any last thoughts?
I was actually thinking we might have one or two that actually have pictures in it, but I don't know yet. So you might actually find one or two picture books in the store for adults. But yeah, I think there's some hand drawn maps or something. I don't know. But yeah, I this was a fun topic. This was definitely a twist on what I thought, and you got me on the spot. But I think I answered it
Job.
pretty well.
That
So
is my job.
good job.
That is my job. Guys, we're thrilled that you joined us today because you have a choice as to where you spend your time, and you chose to spend it with Rob and I, and we are eternally grateful for that. Check in with us next week for the next Books, Banter, and Beyond. Bye.